Part 25. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 241. Chapter 241, Secret Competition. King Xiaoao thought she didn't understand, so he explained very kindly, "It means that you are too narrow-minded, like a hornet's nest." Zhang Ning sneered and said, "Thank you for the compliment, Your Majesty. I still need to work harder." "You," King Xiaoao took a step back with his eyes widened, looked at Zhang Ning up and down several times, and suddenly laughed. Yang Erden and Luya looked at each other and thought to themselves, "Is this person crazy? From the moment we met until now, everything he does is different from normal people." After King Xiaoao finished laughing, he put his hands behind his back and walked proudly into Uncle Guang'an's house. Zhang Ning blinked and looked at him suddenly. "Your Majesty, you can't understand people." King Xiaoao suddenly stopped and said, No, it's just that I think Uncle Guang'an is really interesting and to my liking, so I decided to make you my friend." Zhang Ning laughed angrily, "Thank you, Your Majesty, for your love. I don't dare to climb high, and my house is humble. I'd better ask my servants to take you back." "I don't. I want to stay here to eat." King Xiaoao went straight into the hall, shouting and drinking, sometimes asking for soup, and sometimes asking for hot water. Sometimes he thought the servant was vulgar, sometimes he thought the teacup was not elegant enough, and sometimes he thought the chair too hard. Zhang Ning watched with cold eyes, secretly wondering what would happen if he killed a prince. She suppressed the idea as soon as she raised it. Her family was so prosperous that she couldn't afford it, so she still shouldn't be too impulsive. Seeing that it was getting dark, the cook came over tremblingly and asked, "Madam, what do you want to make for dinner?" Zhang Ning was so angry that he waved his hand casually. "Didn't the eldest young master and the eldest young lady go to Yangta restaurant to taste food today? Let them do it." King Xiaoao squirted all the tea in his mouth and pointed at Zhang Ning. "You are too cruel. The eldest son is so seriously injured and you still want him to cook." "But, I like it, ha ha ha." "Crazy," Zhang Ning couldn't help but cursed. Wing Xiaoao was dumbfounded. "What did you just say about me?" Zhang Ning lowered his head and looked at the ground. "I didn't say anything, the prince misunderstood." King Xiaoao jumped up from his chair and bumped into Zhang Ning, almost touching him. "No. You just scolded me. You scolded me for being crazy. Who are you?" "Your Majesty, please respect yourself." Zhang Ning subconsciously leaned back and stretched out his fist to stop King Xiaoao from approaching. Wing Xiaoao stared at her motionless, just looking at her. When Grandma Yu came in and saw this scene, she was so frightened that she almost fainted. Without saying a word, she rushed in front of Zhang Ning and said in a hurry, "Your Highness, our wife is not the kind of casual person. Please respect yourself." King Xiaoao was stunned for a moment and frowned. "Do I look like such a casual person?" You look like you." Grandma Yu was so anxious that she couldn't think straight, and she accidentally said what was in her heart. King Xiaoao's face darkened a bit, and he finally looked away from Zhang Ning. The two of them explored each other, but neither one admitted it. When Yang Datu and Luye brought the vegetables, they didn't notice anything strange. Instead, they looked at Zhang Ning happily and said, Auntie, this casserole with white meat is meat cut by leaves. I made it. You can try it. There is also this 3-no-stick thing. I don't know what's going on, I can't do the 3-no-stick rule, and it's like honey." In addition to a few famous dishes from the capital, there are also boiled fish and stir-fried vegetables that Yang Datu is good at. This is mainly because he is considering entertaining King Xiaoao, otherwise he wouldn't want to bother. Zhang Ning glanced at the non-stick plate and frowned. "You put too much oil in it and it's not completely absorbed by the dough. Your non-stick plate looks like a joke." After saying that, she was not polite to King Xiaoao and took a sip first. Yang Datu and Lu Ye glanced at Xiaoao Wang subconsciously, and secretly breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that he had no reaction. Zhang Ning commented expressionlessly, I put too much sugar in it, it's too sweet, I didn't control the amount of oil well, it stains my teeth, and overall I can't handle it at all. She rinsed her mouth with water and was about to eat it. It was like honey. At this time, Xiaoao Wang moved his chopsticks and took a mouthful of sanbuji. He frowned so much that he could kill a fly. Your mother-in-law's evaluation is quite fair. Just one bite, and he has lost his appetite. Zhang Ning's lips curled up slightly. After taking a bite, it was like honey, and his eyes instantly lit up. Not bad, this dish is well done. King Xiaoao had just finished rinsing his mouth. Hearing this, he also took a mouthful of mutton, spit it out, and cursed, you did it on purpose, right? Zhang Ning also vomited, how do you know? Her expression of wanting to be beaten made King Xiaoao's fist harden with anger. Mammy Yu was frightened and secretly worried about Zhang Ning. King Xiaoao stamped his feet viciously, if I trust you again, I will be a dog. Hiss, everyone in the room except Zhang Ning gasped. Yang Datu advised dryly, Your Majesty, you can't say this nonsense. King Xiaoao sat down angrily, closed his eyes, and ignored people. Zhang Ning was in a good mood. Even though she was bitten by it, it didn't affect her appetite at all. However, she still made a serious comment, you must have sprinkled the whole can of sugar in. You need to use sweet noodle sauce to make this dish. That is the special sauce of Beijing, and some time-honored brands should sell it. I know we are here in a hurry and the house is short of a lot of ingredients, but you shouldn't take chances. This dish is worse than the three-letter rule. You will be fined 2 hours for chopping vegetables at night. King Xiaoao finally reacted, opened his eyes, and defended Yang Datu, that's too cruel. Is he still your son? Don't you have a conscience when you treat the injured like this? Your Majesty. I am teaching my son. You are too lenient, Zhang Ning retorted unceremoniously, also. Speaking of uneasy conscience, I would like to ask your Majesty, Xue Xiao has done many evil things. There were dozens if not hundreds of women who were framed by him. It's not an exaggeration for that kind of dirty guy to die 100 times. If you protect this kind of person, your character is very good. Wouldn't it hurt you to talk to me about your conscience here? Insolent, King Xiaoao slammed the table angrily. Zhang Ning snorted coldly, yes. I am a humble village girl who doesn't understand the rules and is speechless. Please bear with me if you want to stay here, Your Majesty. You, King Xiaoao was already on the verge of going berserk. Yang Datu and Lu Ye were trembling with fear, pitifully weak and helpless, and secretly winked at Zhang Ning. Zhang Ning was as if he was blind, as if he didn't see anything. They thought it was over, but they didn't expect that King Xiaoao's anger did not continue to explode and he continued to sit down. For a time, Yang Datu and his wife were dumbfounded, and Grandma Yu and Monk Zhang Er were also confused. Old God Zhang Ning continued to stretch her chopsticks towards the white meat casserole. This time she ate 2 pieces in a row, and finally there was a somewhat gratified smile on her face. Who gave you the advice? Auntie, how do you know? Yang Datu was very shocked and replied honestly and courteously, it's Butler Song. Butler Song is good at this. He eats a lot and knows how to know. He gave me the advice. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 242. Chapter 242 I am not as reliable as my son. Zhang Ning nodded slowly, I will reward you with 1 or 2 taels of silver, and everyone else has contributed today. You are all loyal. Later, you will all come to Grandma to receive the reward. I will ask someone to prepare some weapons for you tomorrow. If someone comes to bully you again, Just take action. If anything happens, I'll take care of it. King Xiaoao had a gut feeling that these words were meant for him, and he became more and more depressed. He picked up a piece of boiled fish with his chopsticks, and his eyes lit up as soon as he put it into his mouth. His depressed mood was swept away. This dish is for you, maid. Yang Data nodded honestly, feeling nervous in his heart. My lord, is it still to your taste? Not bad, not bad. The dishes in the capital are more sour and sweet, or light, and pay attention to the original taste. There are not many chefs who can make spicy dishes, and even fewer are good at it. I sent someone to find some from Guangning Mansion. I invited a few chefs to Beijing and found that the spicy dishes they cooked were different from what I thought, and they would cause constipation if they ate too much. I sent them all away later. King Xiaoao frowned when he mentioned those things. Looking carefully at the boiled fish dish, he discovered that there were many chili peppers and Sichuan peppercorns in it, which were spices that he had been looking for a long time. He immediately stood up and said excitedly, "Where did you get these things?" Yang Data looked at Zhang Ning for some reason and replied respectfully, "My mother-in-law grew it herself. The farmland at home is limited, so what she grows is only enough for her own business and has never been sold to outsiders." That's it. King Xiaoao sat down again and glanced at Zhang Ning. "Hey, can you share some of this with me?" "Why?" Zhang Ning looked like he was rejecting people thousands of miles away. King Xiaoao was anxious. "Just because we are from the same place, why don't you give me this little face?" "Ha! Stop arguing, who is the same as you?" Zhang Ning moved his whole body to the other side, wishing to stay away from him. King Xiaoao was not annoyed and even stepped forward. "I know everything. Don't try to deceive me." "Your Majesty, please respect yourself." Zhang Ning glared and pointed at him with chopsticks. Xiaoao Wang sat back down in low spirits and ate the boiled fish as if to vent his anger. Yang Datu and the others were confused when they heard it, and looked confused. However, Zhang Ning had no intention of explaining, and King Xiaoao looked like a frustrated little daughter-in-law. What is going on? The couple felt like cats scratching their heads and were extremely anxious. At this moment, Butler Song hurriedly came in and reported, "Your Majesty, the Crown Prince is here to pick you up." As soon as he finished speaking, a young man in brocade robes, about 10 years old, walked into the hall. He was tall and straight, serious in speech, and politely greeted Zhang Ning. Then he looked at King Xiaoao. "Father, it's getting late, you should go home." King Xiaoao looked outside the door, frowned, and was very unhappy. "Why does it get dark so soon? Really, I haven't eaten enough yet." Everyone. Although the Prince Xiao Konggyun is young and mature, he is still a child after all. Seeing his father say such rude words in a guest's house, his handsome little face almost burned. "Father. Uncle Guang'en, I made you laugh." Zhang Ning has always been tolerant towards children, and Xiao Konggyun was polite in his advances and retreats, which gave her a very good impression. She immediately shook her head with a smile on her face and said, "No problem." Xiao Konggyun was even more embarrassed and kept winking at King Xiaoao. King Xiaoao looked at Yang Datu and muttered, "I will eat this dish tomorrow, so remember to prepare it well." "Father," Xiao Konggyun felt so embarrassed and humiliated that he wanted to dig a crack in the ground and crawl in. King Xiaoao completely ignored his son's anxiety, stood up unhurriedly, and asked Zhang Ning, "How many children do you have?" "Why are you asking this?" Zhang Ning's eyes instantly became impatient when she looked at him. King Xiaoao was speechless. "Hey! You are so stingy. Didn't I just say a few words for Shuexiao? As for keeping scorning me? You are so petty. If you don't say it, I will knock you down. Just say it." King Xiaoao looked at Yang Big Head. Yang Data did not dare to offend this living ancestor, so he immediately explained everything about his boss. King Xiaoao touched his chin thoughtfully. I understand. See you tomorrow. He had just taken 2 steps when he immediately turned back and told his son, Uncle Guang'an is my father's best friend. In the future, my father will come to Uncle Guang'an's house often, and you don't need to be such a heretic. Zhang Ning laughed angrily. Yang Datu and Lu Ye were even more confused. Xiao Kongyun felt like he was about to faint. Father, please leave quickly. Everyone can see that Uncle Guang'an does not welcome his father, nor does he know why his father is so thick-skinned. After King Xiaoao went out, Xiao Kongyun apologized to Zhang Ning with a guilty look on his face. Uncle Guang'an, don't think like my father. My father was not like this before. He has changed since the death of my mother and concubine, and sometimes he acts crazy. His words are shocking and his actions are strange. Please bear with me. Zhang Ning thought that this person must have come through that time. The child in front of her lost her mother and father at a young age. It was really pitiful. She sighed in her heart, and there was a bit of pity on her face. It doesn't matter, I don't have to worry about it. I didn't take it seriously. Seeing Zhang Ning's profound understanding of justice, Xiao Kongyun felt relieved and his expression softened a lot. Then I'll take my leave first. As soon as King Xiaoao and his son left, Yang Datu and Lu Ye immediately asked, Auntie, when did you become friends with King Xiaoao Chenzi? Why didn't we know? You mammy has the same confusion. Zhang Ning glanced at them and smiled. You believe what a madman says. After saying that, she got up and went back to the room, leaving Yang Datu and his wife looking at each other. After the couple returned to the house, Lu Ye held the child and coaxed her for a while. After the child fell asleep, she lowered her voice and asked, Do you think King Xiaoao has fallen in love with a Niang? Cough cough cough. Yang Datu was frightened by these words and lost his breath. After he recovered, he immediately covered Lu Ye's mouth nervously. Don't talk nonsense. I heard that King Xiaoao has 2 major hobbies in his life, beauties and delicious food. How could such a romantic person fall in love with my mother-in-law? Lu Ye pulled Yang Datu's hand down unconvinced. What's wrong with my mother? I'd like to tell you that she's very pretty. She has thin skin and tender flesh, and she doesn't look like a grandmother at all. Yang Datu was immediately frightened and giggled twice. I didn't say that my mother-in-law was not good-looking. If my mother-in-law was not good-looking, my father would not marry her, so she must be good-looking. What I mean is that with the status of King Xiaoao, there is no shortage of women around him. There are so many noble ladies from aristocratic families who want to marry him. They can't afford to find someone like a Niang who has many children and grandchildren, right? Lu Ye's face finally looked better. Thinking of being bullied today, she felt very uncomfortable. Big head, what do you think we should do to avoid being looked down upon? If it weren't for the identity of a Niang here today, I'm afraid I would have fallen into a den of thieves, let alone you. But we can't always rely on Grandma to protect us. Grandma will always get old, and we have to stand up on our own. When I was in Ping'an County, everyone would respect them a bit when they knew they were the sons and daughters-in-law of Uncle Guang'an. She was very satisfied and grateful for her life and never felt anything was wrong with her. But today, just one day in the capital, refreshed her knowledge. It turns out that having a title without ability is useless, and she will still be bullied. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 243. Chapter 243 Between Father and Son. Yang Datu felt more deeply than Lu Ye, which was why he was particularly afraid of Zhang Ning provoking King Xiaoao just now. Lu Ye saw that he was deep in thought and stopped saying anything. After a while, Yang Datu said slowly, Didn't King Xiaoao like the boiled fish I cooked today? Why learn Beijing cuisine? I might as well make my own special dish well. As long as my cooking skills catch the eye of King Xiaoao, you can get his blessing, just like Yangta restaurant. The corner of Lu Ye's mouth twitched slightly. Look at Xiaoao Wang's attitude towards Niang. Niang is even impatient and he still rushes forward. Even if your cooking is a mess, Xiaoao Wang will still look at Niang's face. Taking care of you, I mean long term. Never mind. You'd better cook well. I'll go find my mother-in-law myself to discuss it tomorrow. She found that she and Yang Data were thinking about different things, and she felt tired. The couple turned off the lights and lay down, but some people couldn't sleep all night. The backyard of Duke Angguo's mansion. Aunt Chun burst into tears in her Liwa garden, but the maid and mother-in-law could not persuade her. It was only at this time that Duke Angguo came back from outside, covered with wind and frost. Aunt Chun rushed over with a pair of walnut eyes. Master Guo, is there any news? When will Xiao be released? And Qiagong sat down with Aunt Chun in his arms with a calm face, and said comfortingly, "Don't worry, I've taken care of everything. Although I can't get out for the time being, the Ministry of Punishments will try their best to take care of her. At most, the place she lives in will be simple, and the surroundings will be simple. No impact." Aunt Chun burst into tears. Xiao has been raised by nobles since he was a child, and he has never suffered any pain. How can he bear it? Seeing his beloved concubine crying so sadly, Duke Angguo resented Zhongning even more. There is nothing we can do about it. Duke Angguo has been loyal for generations and has made great contributions to the state of Qi. Even if Xiao forces a good citizen to die, the emperor will not treat him lightly. Let go, but he shouldn't say that in public and let the Yang family find out. The last thing the emperor can tolerate is for his ministers to exceed the rules. This time, he should teach Xiao a lesson and let him remember what he can and cannot say. Don't cry anymore, the duke of the country will remember this account. The Yang family will definitely pay it back 1,000 times 100 times one day. Aunt Chun's ability to dote on her for so long was certainly not brainless. After hearing these words, she knew that she could no longer be so reluctant, so she put away her tears and asked pitifully, "What about you? She is our pampered and raised daughter. It is useless to blame me. If she was born into the wife's belly. Being a concubine in the palace is also a privilege. Just because she is a concubine, she can only be a beauty in the palace. It was already unfair enough, but now she has been demoted from a beauty to a talented person. She must be extremely sad. If I had known this would happen, I might as well have let her marry King Xiaoao for a sequel." This is what Aunt Chun regrets the most. When Shuiyu reached the age of marriage, the mother and daughter began to consider the candidates for her husband's family. Will marry a concubine. Shuiyu was so pampered by Qiagong and Aunt Chun that she was arrogant and high-minded. She didn't look down on those families without titles at all, let alone the position of the main wife of a small family. After thinking about it, Shuiyu set her sights on King Xiaoao. Although King Xiaoao was more than 10 years older than her and had a legitimate son, as long as she came through, there would be many opportunities for this legitimate son to disappear, and then he would be the crown prince. Her sons. In order to marry King Xiaoao, Shuiyu even took the initiative to seduce him. King Xiaoao was also lustful and would not refuse anyone who came. He often said frivolous words to Shuiyu, just when Shuiyu thought she was going to succeed. King Xiaoao turned around and got involved with the Warren, and even went to the palace to ask for an order to have the emperor canonize Xiao Kongyun as his heir apparent. Shuiyu was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She was so arrogant that she chose to enter the palace out of anger. Aunt Chun paused as soon as she thought of this. If she had known that this would be the result, she would have stopped her no matter what. And Guo Gong's face turned darker. The emperor arrested Shuixiao because Shuixiao was disrespectful. He could accept it in his heart, but he couldn't understand the anger against Shuiyu. This was clearly a slap in the face of Nguogong's government. Show off your power. If he had not handed over the military power a few years earlier, he would definitely have gone to the palace to discuss it with the emperor. Now that he has been away from the army for many years, all the forces he cultivated have been replaced, and he has no confidence to challenge the emperor. Thinking of this, Duke Nguo became furious and ordered his servants, "Go and call the prince to the study." Aunt Chun knew that Duke Nguo was trying to think of something, so she immediately released him, and even sent him out of Liwayuan very considerately. In the study of Duke Nguo, Nguogong was furious when he saw the careless eldest son. "Do you understand what I said to you? This time Guang'an's mansion has embarrassed Nguogong's mansion so much. They must be taught a lesson. This matter you go and do it. And your sister, the favors in the palace require a lot of money, so I will send another 20,000 taels of silver notes to the palace and ask your mother to go there in person." Xuechen, the eldest son of Nguogong, had a slight change in his expression. "Father, my mother is sick from anger today and will not be able to go out for a short time." "How shameless! She won't get sick sooner or later, but she gets sick at this time. She might as well die," and Nguogong was so angry that he couldn't help but speak. Xuechen clenched his fists tightly, his face condensed. After Duke Nguo finished scolding him, he took a look and saw that the eldest son's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot, which was simply unlucky. He immediately waved his hands impatiently, "Get out." Xuechen didn't want to stay any longer, so he left simply. That posture made Duke Nguo extremely angry, and he muttered to himself, "As expected, he is not as considerate as Xiao. They are all here to collect debts." After Xuechen left, he immediately went to the main courtyard to see Mrs. Zhou. Mr. Zhou was so angry today that she didn't even lie down at this point. When she saw her eldest son coming, she immediately stepped forward and asked, "Has the Duke caused trouble for you again?" Xuechen sat down, took a sip of hot water, and said, "He asked me to take action against Uncle Guang'an's mansion." Zhou's head was pounding, she was shocked and angry. "He wants to kill you." From what happened today, Zhou could tell that Uncle Guang'an was not like the legendary figure who was ignorant and easy to bully. He would bring the matter to the emperor when he was slightly wronged. He didn't show any kindness at all, he was reckless and tough. It can't be messed with at all. It was good for Nguogong. He actually asked his eldest son to come forward and teach Guang'anbo a lesson. Once the matter got serious, Guang'anbo would definitely pursue the case, and her son would be pushed out by Nguogong to take the trouble. If one of them failed, Nguogong's heir apparent would have to be replaced. What a vicious thought. "Chen'er, you can't listen to him." Mrs. Zhou clutched her chest, with a pale face, and held on to Xuechen. Xuechen gave her a comforting look and said, "Mom, don't worry. I have seen through it all these years. Since my father is so disrespectful of the relationship between father and son, I don't need to endure it anymore. The Duke of Angwo doesn't need so many sons, one is enough." "You," Mrs. Zhou was so frightened by Xuechen's words that her heart skipped a beat. A flash of madness flashed in Xuechen's eyes. "My son also wants to see what his father will choose. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over." Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 244. Chapter 244 Naked Provocation. At this time, in the Sky Prison, the dark cell was being tidied up. The torches around the walls were burning brightly, and the cell was brightly lit. A gorgeous bab bed was placed in the cell, which seemed out of place here. Xueshao lay lazily on the bed, enjoying the service of the two maids. "Second young master, come on, open your mouth." Yingying thoughtfully stuffed the fruit into Xueshao's mouth, leaning forward, revealing a faint spring color, which made Xueshao's hand become unsteady. If it weren't for his abdomen she was still injured, so he could probably take care of Yingying in this dungeon. Yanyan massaged his hands on the inside of the bed and shouted angrily, "Second young master! Why don't you look at my servant? Look at you, you are all my treasures. Let me see them all." Shui Xiao extended his pig's trotters to Yan Yan again. The three of them were laughing and playing on the bed, their moves becoming more and more bold. At the same time, the emperor, who was visiting privately incognito, left the palace and went to Dingguo Palace accompanied by Dekang. Dingguo Gongfu and Angguo Gongfu are the same as the founders of the dynasty. The difference is that Angguo Gongfu passed down to Angguo Gong's generation and gradually declined. However, Angguo Gongfu was arrogant and did not realize the problem. Duke Dingguo's palace is not as prosperous as in the early years. However, this generation of Duke Dingguo knew that flowers never last 100 days, and he was worried that the emperor would be wary of his family being too powerful, so he always acted cautiously and kept a low profile. The old lady in Duke Ding's mansion is the daughter of a princess. In terms of seniority, the emperor calls her aunt. Now that the old lady is seriously ill, the emperor is worried and has to come to visit her once or twice a month. Ding Qiagong Shen Zhongguen received the news early and took his eldest son Shen Yuzong and his second son Shen Yuxing to wait outside the gate of the mansion. When the emperor's carriage appeared in sight, the three people immediately stepped forward to greet it. "I pay my respects to the emperor. May the emperor be blessed with peace and prosperity." "Everyone, get up." With Dekang's help, the emperor got off the carriage and walked straight to the steps. The group of people entered the mansion. Different from the luxurious style of Duke Angguo's mansion, Duke Dingguo's mansion is solemn and simple, without too many ornaments. Naturally, there is no need to worry that the emperor will feel uncomfortable after seeing it. The old lady was obviously very happy to learn that the emperor had come, but she was also very worried. The emperor has so many things to do, how can he leave the palace so often and delay political affairs? The emperor did not take it seriously. With a gentle and calm expression, "If my aunt is worried that I will delay my political affairs, it is better to recover as soon as possible. If my aunt is well, I can also review the memorial with peace of mind." The old lady sighed repeatedly, "I also want to get well soon, but I'm getting older. There will come a time when there's nothing I can't let go of." "Mom. Don't say depressing words," Dingguo Gong quickly reassured him. "I'll let Yuzong and Yuxing talk to you about the outside world later. Don't you still want to see the cooking competition? How will you go out if you don't recover soon?" The old lady laughed dumbly. "I just said it casually. You guys took it seriously." The emperor pondered for a moment and said, "If my aunt wants to watch it, why not arrange the cooking competition in the Duke Dingguo's mansion? The martial arts training ground in the mansion is large enough, so my aunt can also join in the fun." Duke Dingguo was stunned for a moment, frightened, and knelt down to thank him. The old lady was flattered and eagerly stopped her. "There's no need to spend so much effort on my behalf." The emperor slowly shook his head. "I am the only elder left with my aunt, and I should be filial. Even if Genyang finds out, he will agree. I can take care of my aunt in peace, and there is no need to pay attention to others." The emperor stayed in the old lady's courtyard for a while, and after carefully asking about the old lady's diet and daily life, he got up and left. Duke Ding saw him off. As soon as they walked outside the door of the mansion, they saw Xue Chen kneeling there. His thin body seemed to be broken by the wind and snow. The emperor subconsciously darkened his face and frowned. "Who is coming?" Xue Chen kowtowed. "Xue Chen, the prince of Duke Angguo, pays homage to the emperor. Long live the emperor! Long live the emperor!" The emperor's face darkened even more when he heard the words in Qiagong. It was obvious that his anger was still lingering. Duke Dingguo looked on in horror and couldn't figure out whether Xue Chen had taken the wrong medicine and actually came to his house to block the emperor. Didn't he think that Duke N's mansion wasn't chaotic enough recently? "Why are you here?" The emperor's voice was unhurried and his face was neither sad nor happy, with no emotion at all. The more this happened, the more suffocating and oppressive he was. Duke Dingguo stood on the edge, feeling like a storm was coming. He wanted to rush over and drive Xuechen away, at least far away from his home. He didn't want to be affected. Xuechen didn't know what Duke Dingguo was thinking. He kept his head on the ground and immediately replied after hearing the sound, "Your Majesty, the humble minister is incompetent and cannot dissuade his father. He can only kill the family out of justice. Please move to the dungeon and take a look." Duke Dingguo was so shocked that he couldn't recover for a long time. The emperor remained calm and asked Dekang to change direction without saying a word. Duke Dingguo didn't want to follow him, and he also thought that the emperor left the palace for his mother. If something went wrong outside the palace, Duke Dingguo's mansion would be angry, so he quickly asked the housekeeper to arrange for guards to follow him. The group came to the punishment department dungeon. The jailer guarding the gate was a little lazy at first, but when he saw the sign displayed by Dekang, he was so frightened that his legs went weak and he knelt down. He was about to salute loudly, but Dekang immediately covered his mouth. "Don't make any noise, or my head will be on your neck." Under Dekang's threat, the jailer did not dare to say anything, but his body shook even more violently. The emperor knew there was something wrong inside as soon as he saw it, so he hurried in. When he got down to the dungeon, he happened to witness a lively drama. Although Xueshao injured his abdomen and could not move vigorously, his vitality was not injured. He couldn't bear it after being teased by Yingyingyanyan for a few times, so he actually asked two maids to do that to him in the dungeon. The impact of the picture was so great that Duke Dingguo, who was following him, was frightened. "Is this a dungeon or a prison courtyard? Do you people, still have an emperor in your eyes? It is simply a crime that deserves death." Duke Dingguo pointed at the jailers and was so angry that he was shaking all over. Xueshao and Yingyingyanyan were also so frightened that they crawled off the bed. The emperor stared at the prison head, say, "Who means that?" He did not believe that a prison boss would dare to make such an arrangement. The prison head was so frightened that he broke out in a cold sweat. He knelt on the ground and did not dare to hide anything. This is what the minister wanted. Cao's Haiheng. Ha ha. It's really good. The emperor turned and left angrily. There is only one thought in Lao's mind, it's over. It's all over. Xuechen followed the emperor out of the dungeon. The emperor turned back suddenly, his cold eyes falling on him, as if looking at a dead man. Xuechen immediately knelt down and said, "Wei Chen deserves to die." "That's good." The emperor gritted his teeth and bulged his cheeks. "Xuechen, do you know what you're doing? This means to Duke Dingguo." "I know. But Wei Chen has nothing to do," Xuechen cried with grief. "Wei Chen has persuaded his father that what happened to his second brother was obviously his own fault and had nothing to do with Uncle Guang'en, but my father listened to instead of persuading him, he forced Wei Chen to teach Uncle Guang'en a lesson and stand up for his second brother." Wei Chen's mother was so angry that she fell ill, but her father forcibly ordered her mother, who was lingering on the sick bed, to go to the palace to give Yukai Ren a banknote to support her. "My father doesn't care about my mother. As a son, I can't just watch my father abuse my mother. Moreover, my father is wrong. I really can't let him make mistakes again and again, pushing Angguo Duke's mansion into the abyss. Wei Chen is also desperate. This is the only last resort. The emperor wants to fight or kill, but all the ministers admit it. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over." Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 245. Chapter 245. The fish is dead and the net is broken. After hearing these words, the emperor's expression finally softened a bit, and at least half of his anger towards Xuechen was gone. "Get up. You go back first. I will make my own decision on this matter." Xuechen was stunned for a moment, then immediately stepped back respectfully when he realized what he was doing. "Zhang Wen, what do you think?" The emperor glanced at Duke Ding next to him. Duke Dingguo replied solemnly, "What Prince Nguo said is probably true. It may be a bit exaggerated, but Duke Nguo is indeed getting more and more outrageous. For the sake of a mere bastard, he actually pushed his legitimate son to this point. It is also rare in the world. These are all the family affairs of Nguo Gong. I don't want to say more, but Nguo Gong reached out to the dungeon for the sake of his concubine. He is really an old fool." "Humph. Is he an old fool? I think he is quite smart, and he knows how to take care of his son like this." The emperor's words were sarcastic, and he was obviously very angry. Duke Dingguo did not dare to add fuel to the fire and quickly shut up. To be honest, he didn't want Anguo's government to fall at all. After all, there were only two major princes in the entire Qi state. If Anguo's government disappeared, the remaining Dingguo government would be really conspicuous. Their family is now extremely careful in their actions. If there was no Duke Anguo to share the attention of others, wouldn't it be like walking on thin ice in the future? But he had to express his position, and more importantly, he had to show his loyalty. It was inevitable to step on Anguo's mansion, but it was really embarrassing for him. The emperor returned to the palace angrily. The first thing he did was to listen to the secret guard. The result was not much different from what Xue Chen said. However, during the investigation, the secret guard also found some things that Xue Chen didn't say or even Xue Chen didn't know. Things. The Duke of Nguo not only wanted to use this incident to dethrone Xue Chen as the heir apparent, but also intended to drive the eldest son out of the capital, and let Xue Shaiji be named the Duke of Nguo's wife. After a few years, he would give Xue Xiao the title of heir apparent. This is what Nguo Gong told Cao's Haiheng, the Minister of Punishment, after he was drunk. In order to get Cao's Haiheng to help, Nguo Gong even promised to let Xue Xiao marry Cao's daughter in the future. From now on, Cao's daughter will be Nguo Gong's wife. Such a big temptation was placed in front of him, and Cao's Haiheng was not a mentally resolute person, so he was bribed immediately. In addition to the Minister of Punishment, several other officials were also involved, and they were all waiting to get Xue Xiao out of the dungeon safely. The emperor laughed angrily when he heard the secret guard, and slammed the table. "I haven't issued the order yet, but Nguo Gong has made arrangements for me first. It's really good. Come here. Pass the order." It was already past noon when Xue Chen returned to Duke Anguo's mansion. Looking at the familiar door, he suddenly laughed out loud, making the concierge and the guards tremble in their hearts. Xue Chen laughed for a while and went straight to the main courtyard. "Zhou has been pretending to be sick since last night. Although she is fine, she is still pretending to be lying on the bed." She turned over when she heard some noise and asked, "How is it?" Xue Chen's eyes were like a pool of stagnant water. He opened his mouth and said in a hoarse voice, "Mother, I did it. Maybe the Anguo palace will soon be gone in the capital." Zhou's body seemed to have been drained of strength. She fell down, lost consciousness for a moment, and murmured to herself, "I knew this day would come sooner or later. Haha, I hope the emperor will go online and leave us a message because we took the initiative to expose it." Life. If Duke Nguo is not exposed, there is only one ending waiting for their mother and son. Now that they are fighting, it may be possible to put them to death and survive. Xue Chen was about to say something when the housekeeper suddenly rushed into the main courtyard with a panicked expression. "Madam, Your Majesty, there is an imperial edict from the palace." Zhou and Xue Chen were heartbroken and quickly packed up and went out to receive the order. Aunt Chun was not qualified to show up for an occasion like this. I don't know if Nguo Gong was out of his mind, but he actually asked Aunt Chun to kneel down with him to receive the order. When Zhou saw this scene, he felt more and more that his decision was right. With Xue Chen's help, he slowly walked over, found a place far away from Nguo Gong and knelt down. Seeing this scene, Dekang's mouth twitched slightly, and he finally understood why the Prince Angguo wanted to kill his relatives in such a righteous way. When everyone was here, he cleared his throat and shouted loudly, "By God, the Emperor issued an edict that Duke Nguo, Shuigang, bribed Caos Haiheng, the Secretary of the Ministry of Punishment, and disturbed the law. The following committed the crime. It is a heinous crime. Shuigang is hereby deposed as Dukan. Was demoted to a commoner, exiled to the northwest, and will not be allowed to enter the capital in this life." Duke Nguo's eyes were splitting, and he shouted emotionally, "Impossible. There is no way that the Emperor can revoke my title. My ancestors, Duke Nguo, died fighting for the Qi state. Countless of them, the Emperor will not do this to Duke Nguo." The reason why he dared to be so unscrupulous was because of the great contributions made by the ancestors of the Shui family. His grandmother had told him since he was a child that as long as he did not rebel, the Emperor would turn a blind eye no matter how big the trouble was. Now he told the Emperor wanted to abolish his title. How could he accept it? Dekang's face darkened, and he stared at Shuigang with a sinister look. "Shuigang, is it possible that you want to resist the order?" Shuigang was startled, and when he reacted, he immediately argued, "That's not what I meant. You, a eunuch, don't slander me. Aren't you afraid of chilling the hearts of the people in the world by dethroning me as Duke Nguo?" Dekang chuckled, "Shuigang, Shuigang. Who do you think you are? The Emperor only said that your position as Duke Nguo would be abolished, but he did not say that he would take away the title of Duke Nguo. Why are you anxious?" Shuigang was stunned. Aunt Chun was panicked and held Shuigang's sleeve tightly. Dekang began to read the second imperial edict. "By the fate of heaven, the Emperor issued an edict. Shuichen, the Prince of Angguo, has a great heart, filial piety and respect. From now on, Shuichen will be granted the title of Angguo. I hope that he will restrain himself, observe etiquette, and be careful in his words and deeds, revitalize the lintel of Duke Angguo's mansion. Thank you for this." Shuigang turned around suddenly, staring at Shuichen with vicious eyes, as if he was not looking at his own son but an sworn enemy. "It's you. It was you who did it, right? Okay. I really gave birth to a good son." Shuigang clenched his fists, veins popped out on his forehead, and slowly got up from the ground, approaching Zhou's mother and son step by step. Zhou was frightened and knelt on the ground begging Dekang for help. "Father-in-law, he is crazy. Please save our mother and son." Dekang was furious. "Shuigang. You really want to die, don't you? Ha ha ha, I've lived to this age, so what's there to be afraid of? I'm just teaching my son a lesson, it has nothing to do with you." Seeing Shuigang being so stubborn, Dekang took a step back with a gloomy expression. "Shuigang is disobeying the order, take action." A group of imperial guards rushed toward Shuigang with their spears raised. Shuigang, however, was obsessed with killing Shuichen and had no scruples at all. He was born in the military. Even if he had not wielded a sword or a gun for many years, his skills were not something that Shuichen could resist. Just as Shuigang's fist was about to fall, Shuichen shouted, "Shuishao is dead." Shuigang's fist stopped an inch away from Shuichen. "What did you say?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fensti. Chapter 246. Chapter 246 Revenge. Shuichen laughed crazily. "I said your beloved is dead. Come and kill me. By then you will be extinct, and the Emperor can justifiably take back his title. From now on, there will be no Duke Angguo in Qi state, ha 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 ha." These words were like a wake-up call, hitting Shuigang hard in the heart. He really liked Aunt Chun and her children more than his wife. When he was young, he never thought of abolishing his legitimate son and establishing a concubine because of the ethics. Now that he is getting older, his legitimate son has separated from him, and his concubine has left him. But if you can please him, his heart is completely biased. But favoring the concubine does not mean that he does not value the Duke of Angwo. In his heart, the most important thing is the title of Duke Angwo. Without this title, he would not be able to see his ancestors even if he died. It is absolutely impossible for the government to be cut off in his hands. If Xuexiao really died, he really couldn't do anything to Xuechen. You have planned it for a long time, right? Xuegang picked up Xuechen's neck, as if he was meeting the eldest son in front of him for the first time. Xuechen laughed so hard, didn't you guess it? Do you need me to explain it clearly? Since you want us mother and son to pave the way for that bitch, I will let you take a good look at how I paved the road for them. From Huangquan Road, ha ha ha. Only you can treat something that is not worthy of publicity as a treasure. I just removed a cancer for the Xue family. You should thank me. Father. You deserve to die. Xuegang was completely angered, but before his fist fell, he was stabbed in the chest. Xuegang turned around in disbelief and met Zhou's bone-cold eyes. You're the one who deserves to die. Zhou used all his strength to pull out the knife, and his face was sprayed with blood, looking like an evil ghost in the daytime. Aunt Chun was so frightened that her face turned pale, she screamed and fainted. Dekang didn't expect that this family would get into trouble like this. He frowned, and when he saw Xuegang slowly falling down, he said without changing his expression, Dong and Guo, take the order. Xuechen woke up from a dream, coughed a few times, stepped forward and knelt down respectfully to receive the order. I accept the order. My father-in-law, I am guilty. After I handle my family affairs, I will take the initiative to go to the palace to plead guilty. Dekang's expression softened a lot after hearing this. No need. The miscellaneous family will bring Mr. Nguo's words, but the emperor may not be willing to see you. Xuechen's methods were not very clever. Not to mention the emperor, anyone who knew what happened could guess it. However, what Xuegang and Xuexiao did was not done under Xuechen's instruction. I can only say that these two people deserved it. But after all, one of them is Xuechen's father and the other is his concubine. No matter how hard they disagree with Xuechen, they should not come forward to expose the matter in person. The emperor was very angry that Xuechen used him as a swordsman, but Xuechen used a conspiracy and was willing to take the blame, and there was a reason for it. If he was too careless, it would appear that he was narrow-minded. In order to stabilize the people's hearts and balance the situation of the government, he also don't win the title easily. It can be said that the emperor has never been so aggrieved, and it was Xuechen who caused all this. It is strange that he can wait to see Xuechen. I'm afraid that the emperor never wants to see Xuechen's face again in his lifetime. Xuechen smiled bitterly twice, kowtowed 3 times before getting up, and slowly turned around. His back looked a bit desolate. Dekang led the people away, and the door of Duke Angwo's mansion slowly closed. Xuechen walked up to Zhou and took out the dagger from her hand. Mom, we won. Zhou's absent-minded eyes gradually became focused, and her eyes fell on Xuechen's face, and she cried loudly. Xuechen patted Mr. Zhou's back comfortingly, went over to check Xuegang's breathing, and found that Xuegang was not dead yet. He immediately raised an evil smile at the corner of his mouth. Butler, please call the doctor. You want to save him? Zhou's eyes widened in disbelief. She married Xuegang when she was a teenager. She really regarded Xuegang as her at first. Before Aunt Chun came into the house, the couple did not say they were in love, but they treated each other with respect and never blushed. But since Xuegang got, Aunt Chun seemed to be a different person. The couple often quarreled because of Aunt Chun, which was very unpleasant. Every time like this, Mrs. Zhou would show off her head wife style and severely punish Aunt Chun. Afterwards, Xuegang would stand up for Aunt Chun. When the two of them had the most violent quarrel, they even made a move. Of course, Mrs. Zhou would definitely not be able to defeat Shui Gang. It was also at that time that Mrs. Zhou gave up on Shui Gang. As Aunt Chun's children grew up, Mrs. Zhou's hatred grew. Today she was finally able to kill Shui Gang and deal with Aunt Chun openly, but her son actually wanted to save Shui Gang. Gang, Zhou will never accept this. Shui Chen was a little helpless. Mom, please calm down. Think about it now, he is no longer Dukan, I am. The entire Shui family belongs to us. If he really dies, you will be the murderer. Although there is a reason, the emperor may not, I'll blame it, but what about our family's reputation? If I had a mother who killed her husband, even if I were Dukan, who would dare to marry a good girl? And you can't stay away from home for the rest of your life. Who would dare to get close to you with the reputation of being a husband killer? Is this what you want? Zhou was reminded like this, and her mind, which was overwhelmed by hatred, finally sobered up a little. She took a few steps back in fear. Yes, you are right, he can't die, it would be too easy for him to die. Instead of letting Shui Gang die, it is better to let him live and suffer in the northwest. This is the best punishment for him. Shui Chen couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw Mrs. Zhou wanted to understand. His eyes fell on Aunt Chun. There is still her, what should I do with her? Mrs. Zhou still had some worries about Shui Gang because of her son, but Aunt Chun didn't care at all. Don't she like to seduce people? I scratched her face and took her into the Gulan courtyard. Shui Chen sighed helplessly. Mom, have you forgotten that Shui Yu is still in the palace? You got the person into the Gulan courtyard with your front foot. Believe it or not, Shui Yu can find a way to get the person out with your back foot. Then what do you want? Mrs. Zhou glared at Aunt Chun, almost biting her teeth with hatred. Shui Chen knew the hatred in his mother's heart. He pondered for a moment and said slowly, you can scratch her face, but you can't throw it into Gulan courtyard. Doesn't she have deep love for her father? Her father is now so seriously injured that he is exiled. How can I do it without someone caring for me on the road? Zhou was stunned for a moment, suddenly realized, and showed a cheerful smile. The housekeeper was frightened and trembling when he heard this. He was secretly glad that he had never offended the madam and the eldest young master, and silently sympathized with Aunt Chun. Shui Chen saw that things at home were well arranged, and immediately asked people to prepare generous gifts and go to Guangenbo's mansion to apologize. Zhang Ning first arrived in the capital and had no connections at all, so the news was somewhat limited. Originally, this big family came here for the cooking competition, but now the source of the cooking competition, King Xiaoao, runs to their house from time to time, suddenly falling from the altar that people look up to. In addition, he likes to eat boiled fish, and pesters Yang Data to cook spicy dishes for him every day. Yang Data didn't even have a chance to practice his cooking skills. He was very helpless. He reminded vaguely, Your Majesty, I still have to practice my cooking skills to participate in the competition. I don't have extra time to cook for you. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 247. Chapter 247 And Guo Gong comes to visit. When King Xiaoao heard this, he frowned. That's not possible. I can't eat without the spicy dishes you cooked. You must cook for me. Seeing Yang Datu hanging his head, King Xiaoao patted him heavily on the shoulder. Don't worry, cook well for me, and I will let you win the championship. That's okay. Yang Data realized the benefits of rights for the first time. Xiaoao Wang laughed nonchalantly. I originally organized it. I said whoever cooks delicious food will be the first. What's wrong with it? Yang Data was confused and muttered to himself, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong. King Xiaoao was even happier. Then you should cook well for me. Don't think there is no cooking competition. Don't fool my son, Zhang Ning's dissatisfied voice came from behind the two of them. They both turned back. Zhang Ning gave Yang Datu a serious look and said, "Go to practice. You can only cook what I told you today." "What about my boiled fish?" King Xiaoao was anxious. Zhang Ning chuckled twice. "Want to eat?" "Nonsense," King Xiaoao rolled his eyes angrily. No, Zhang Ning was too lazy to pay attention to him, and almost made King Xiaoao angry. Yang Datu has gone from being shocked and worried at the beginning to being surprised now. Seeing Zhang Ning coming over, he quickly asked, "Auntie, what are we learning today? Have you finished practicing the 3 non-sticks and it's like honey?" Zhang Ning looked at Yang Datu suspiciously. Ever since she was almost sent away by these 2 dishes that day, she had been practicing under Yang Datu's side, and the things she made were only after 1 taste, the rest was shared by the servants. "And you and the others are not that particular, and Yang Datu's cooking skills are better than the others. The servants are quite happy to eat, but no matter how good the food is, they can't make it every day. Now Huaji and the others see it." These 2 dishes were so scary that even the little girl who likes sweet food looked bitter and resentful. Wang Xiaoao complained at the side, "Why can't you get along with these 2 dishes? I don't like eating them. Stop practicing." Zhang Ning immediately turned around and glared at him viciously, "Shut up." King Xiaoao looked unconvinced. He was worried that Zhang Ning would not let Yang Datu cook for him, so he could only endure it aggrievedly. Yang Datu nodded quickly, "Auntie, I practiced hard, how about I make one for you to try now?" Zhang Ning did not stop him, and King Xiaoao just watched the excitement from the side. These 2 dishes are so familiar to Yang Datu that he can cook them with his eyes closed. Seeing him skillfully preparing the ingredients and cooking in an orderly manner, Zhang Ning's face finally looked better. When the 2 dishes came out of the pot, she only tasted one, and then said slowly, "Today I will teach you how to make a few simple desserts and pastries, including milk tea, honey cake, and fried pork floss buns. You need to use an oven. But we don't have an oven at home, and we can't carry that thing, so I'll teach you another way." After Zhang Ning finished speaking, he asked Huaji and others to come in carrying a heavy iron tool. Although the thing is a bit bulky, it can be carried around, which is convenient. I asked the blacksmith and potter to make a simple oven. It has 2 layers of iron inside, and an open fire is connected to the lower layer. The baked food is placed on the upper layer, and it is covered with a layer of clay on the outside. Later, it is covered with a thick layer. The mattress won't be hot to your hands. Yang Datu saw this thing and found it very rare. He touched it here and looked at it, like a little fool who had never seen the world. King Xiaoao couldn't help but frown. "I don't like sweets, why are you teaching him to do this?" Yang Datu looked at Zhang Ning curiously. Zhang Ning rolled his eyes, "Didn't you say you would give him the championship? Then why should he practice? I like sweets, can't I?" "You," King Xiaoao was angry again. At this moment, Butler Song hurriedly came in and reported, "Madam, Duke Nguo is outside the house asking for an audience." The 3 people in the room gathered their emotions together. Zhang Ning was visibly unhappy. "What? Do you think I haven't taught you enough lessons?" King Xiaoao looked a little more solemn. "Shuigang, Duke of Angguo, has really been on the battlefield and killed countless enemies. Now he is still relying on his old age. If you face him, those tricks will not work. Let's go. This king just go and see what trouble he wants to make." Zhang Ning knew that King Xiaoao wanted to support their family and did not refuse. The group of people came to the front yard and were a little confused when they saw Xuechen sitting there politely. Zhang Ning turned around and glanced at Xiaoao Wang doubtfully, as if asking, "Is this what you call old? It looks a little smaller than Yang Datu." King Xiaoao was also a little surprised. "Xuechen? Where is your father?" Xuechen didn't expect to see King Xiaoao in Guang'an's mansion at all. His heart immediately lifted and he hurriedly saluted, Go back to the king, my father is currently recuperating at home. He will be sent away as soon as his condition stabilizes. What nonsense are you talking about? King Xiaoao thought that Xue Chen was crazy. He was his father and Duke Nguo. How could he send him away just as he said? Xue Chen was stunned for a moment. It seemed that King Xiaoao had not received the news yet, so he immediately told the emperor's decree, including the treatment of Xue Gang and Xue Xiao. King Xiaoao was shocked and jumped up from his chair. You said the emperor ordered Xue Xiao to die. Yes, Xue Chen answered simply and did not hide what he had done. Everyone in the room was frightened when they heard what Xue Chen said. King Xiaoao looked at him with a complicated expression. Do you know what you are doing? Even if your reasons are reasonable, father and son are father and son, and brothers are brothers. If you are so cruel to father, son and brother, aren't you afraid of the criticism of the world? Xue Chen chuckled twice, with a look of helplessness on his face. Xue Chen knows, but what can he do? If I hadn't been ruthless, my father would have led his men to Uncle Guang'an's mansion today. You know my father's temperament. The second brother has suffered such a big loss, and he will never let it go. When his father causes a huge disaster, our Duke Angguo's mansion will not be far away from defeat. Moreover, my father is obsessed with abolishing the direct lineage and establishing a concubine. If I sit back and ignore it, how can I survive with my mother? Xue Chen was just forced into helplessness. If I was really cruel, why should I wait until now to take action? The prince is a smart man and should be able to understand. The king of Xiaoao was stunned and speechless. Zhang Ning sat down and let Butler Song watch the tea with a kind smile. He praised Xue Chen in a great mood. It's as it should be. This person should think about himself more in his life. You are not wrong. But your concubine is really hard to explain. Now that he is dead, I can't say much. I just want to praise you for a job well done. Xue Chen didn't expect Uncle Guang'an to be so straightforward. He was shocked for a while before he realized what was happening. He stood up and bowed. Thank you Uncle Guang'an for understanding. Xue Chen didn't know about those things before. Even if he knew about it, he couldn't stop it. Now head Xue Chen finally had the right to speak, so he came to apologize immediately with an apology, hoping that Uncle Guang'an and the eldest young master and eldest wife would forgive. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 248. Chapter 248 Opening a Restaurant. Zhang Ning waved his hand. One thing comes to another. What does your father and brother's evil deeds have to do with you? But to put your mind at ease, we accept this gift. There is no need to mention those things in the future. Xue Chen felt relieved. Seeing that King Xiaoao was still there, it was not convenient for him to stay for a long time, so he left very knowingly. As soon as he left, King Xiaoao immediately glared at Zhang Ning angrily. How dare you still praise him for being such a hypocrite and such a villain? Stupid. Bah. I think you are the one who is stupid. Whether Xue Chen is good or bad has nothing to do with me. Besides, he helped me clear the way and deal with those disgusting things. What's wrong with me thanking him? Zhang Ning retorted, not politely. King Xiaoao was so angry that he spoke without hesitation. What do you know? Although Xue Xiao is shameful and has done a lot of evil things, the bad things he did were all obvious, and the bad things were clear and obvious. In vain, Xue Gang is a dim-witted man. He spoils his concubines and destroys his wife. He is headstrong and self-righteous, and he is not a good person. But no matter how bad they are, they can't be as bad as Xue Chen. That guy is not only insidious but also perverted. Do you know what he did? He fell in love with his father's concubine. That concubine is still kept in the dark, and Xue Gang has no idea. Hearing this, Zhang Ning felt a little nauseous. Does he have such a strong taste? King Xiaoao was furious. Is this the point? I'm telling you. This person has a dark mind. Now he is forced to bow to you due to the situation, but he may not really let go in his heart. He might bite you behind your back at some point. What should we do? Yang Data looked worried. At this time, Butler Song came in and told everything he had learned. Zhang Ning's tense nerves suddenly relaxed. Let me just say it. Xuechen's performance just now was so different from what you said, and his feelings have been abandoned by the emperor. My lord, do you think he still dares to trip me up behind my back? King Xiaoao looked depressed. I have never seen anyone stupider than him. He hurts the enemy 1,000 times and hurts himself 800. No, Zhang Ning shook his head meaningfully. As Xuechen said, if he sits idly by and does nothing, Xuegang will definitely retaliate against me, and I will never sit back and wait to die. He can't guess the outcome, but he can't afford to be. There was a risk that Duke Nguo's mansion would be deprived of his title, so he made a risky move. In this way, the title of Duke Nguo has been kept, and everything in the Xue family belongs to him. What he has lost is only his reputation, but the actual interests are still firmly in his hands. Maybe he is grateful to me in his heart. If our family hadn't made a big fuss and given him an excuse to act, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to stand up until he was deposed. Yang Datu and Lu Ye were shocked after hearing these words, as if they didn't know Zhang Ning. King Xiaoao sneered, you know him quite well. Not sure whether it was a compliment or a sarcasm, Zhang Ning just took it as a good word. He took a sip of tea with a contented expression and looked at Yang Datu and his wife. Now that Xue Xiao has been executed, don't worry about those things before, and remember them, the purpose of our coming to the capital. Yang Data glanced at King Xiaoao and nodded honestly. Zhang Ning sighed and said seriously, what we want is to win in an honest and fair manner, not to rely on relationships to get the upper hand. Only with strong strength can we be stable in any situation. Relying on others is only temporary and cannot last long. I want to ask you 2 questions. Are you going back to Ping'an County after participating in the cooking competition, or do you have other ideas? Xiaoao Wang wanted to say something to Zhang Ning, but after hearing what she said later, he held it back. He also wanted to know the family's plan to come to the capital. If they were traveling for a few days, he wanted to find out Zhang Ning's details before the family left the capital. If this family plans to settle in the capital, he can take his time and not be in a hurry. Yang Data looked at Zhang Ning and King Xiaoao, feeling very confused. Lu Ye on the side was more straightforward. Yang, I want to stay in the capital. Huh? Yang Data looked at Lu Ye in surprise. Lu Ye clenched her fists tightly. After this incident, I understand a truth. No one in our family dares to provoke us in Ping'an County, but the dignitaries in the capital simply look down on our family. If we don't work hard to establish a foothold in the capital, our family will be in trouble in the future. I'm afraid it will be even harder. The Yang family is today all because of her mother-in-law. When her mother-in-law passes away, their family will gradually decline without any outstanding descendants. Of course, she shouldn't worry about this alone, but her mother-in-law said it before. In the future, the title will be given to them. Su'er is her eldest son and will most likely inherit the title of Uncle Guang'en. She cannot let her son be looked down upon by the powerful people in the capital in the future. Yang Datu opened his mouth and slowly lowered his head. After a while, his tangled eyes became more determined. Yi Zi is right, I will fight. Auntie, I want to stay in the capital. The smile on King Xiaoao's lips deepened a little. It's good to stay in the capital. The spicy dishes you cook are quite good, and this is the first one in the capital. If you open a restaurant in the future, your business will definitely be prosperous. Don't worry, I will take care of you. With you. Zhang Ning rarely gave him a good look this time. Thank you, Your Majesty, for taking care of me. If you come to support me in the future, I will ask the shopkeeper to give you a 20% discount. Only 20% off? How stingy. King Xiaoao climbed up the pole. Yang Datu was a little embarrassed and was about to say it was free. Zhang Ning instantly turned his face. Don't forget it, I'll suffer less. You are such a woman. King Xiaoao was furious. Will you die if you say a few nice words to make me happy? Zhang Ning nodded. I won't die, but it's a bit off-putting. Zhang Ning. King Xiaoao was so angry that he called him by his name. Zhang Ning picked his ears and saw that the old man was there. I can hear you. If you want to open your voice, the prince, you can go and sit at the concierge of our house. When someone comes, just shout loudly. I am sure I can hear you. Lu Ye couldn't help laughing. King Xiaoao was so angry that he blew his beard and left with eyes wide open. Yang Datu was very worried. Anyang, that is the emperor's favorite brother. Is it really okay for you to let go of your popularity? There's no need for you to worry. Just focus on yourself. I'll go back to Fukan, when everything is stable here. Hey. There are so many children, and they all have so much to worry about. Zhang Ning felt a little melancholy. When she first traveled through time, her idea was very simple, to live a good life, make money and then live comfortably as a landlady in the village, catching cats and amusing dogs, and doing nothing else. Unexpectedly, after earning this money and getting older, she had more worries. It was completely different from what she had imagined. She thought that a trip to the capital was just like a long trip, and it would be a worthwhile trip. As it turned out, everything was full of trouble when I came to the capital. I had a fight with the powerful just now, and I didn't know what trouble was waiting behind me. The more she thought about it, the more worried she became. Then she looked at the eldest son and daughter-in-law in front of her. One was honest and simple-minded, while the other had ambitions and no direction. She didn't know when she would grow up. Yang Datu and his wife also knew that they were not living up to expectations, so they immediately hung their heads in guilt. Zhang Ning cleared his throat and said thoughtfully, I'll go check out the shop that the emperor gave me later. If it's suitable, I can use my own shop to open a restaurant. Yang Datu was shocked and shook his head repeatedly. Auntie, I don't want it. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 249. Chapter 249 Taking Advantage of Someone. Zhang Ning was a little confused. Yang Datu explained, it was agreed at the beginning that except for this mansion, all other properties in the capital would be given to Sizhuang. I can't take advantage of Sizhuang. After all, we want to open a restaurant for long-term business. Once we have a place, it will be difficult to change. The 4 villages will grow up in a few years. It will not be good if something goes wrong due to the store in the future. He always felt that he had taken advantage of him by inheriting the title. He was ashamed of his younger brothers and said that he could not use his younger brother's shop. Zhang Ning thought for a moment and nodded slowly. Your worries are not unreasonable. In that case, let's take a look. I don't know if our money now is enough to buy a shop in the capital. If it's not enough, I'll look for Xiaoao. Just let Wang borrow it. Lu Ye had a question mark on his forehead and said weakly, Auntie, you almost made the prince angry to death just now. If you borrow money from the prince again, will he agree? As soon as he finished speaking, the figure of King Xiaoao appeared in front of the family of 3 again, and the follower behind him had some more things in his hands. I suddenly thought that the roast duck on West Street had just come out of the oven, so I went to buy 2 of them. You guys should try it too. King Xiaoao was only thinking about eating. Yang Datu and his wife were surprised and confused. Zhang Ning was waiting expectantly for the servants to serve the dishes. He took a roll of roast duck rolls from Grandma Yu's hand, took a bite, and nodded repeatedly, "Not bad. You really know how to eat it?" "That's right." King Xiaoao was very proud, and his waist straightened up a lot. Zhang Ning changed the topic and asked, "Are shops in Beijing expensive?" Wang Xiaoao raised his eyebrows, "What? Do you want to buy it?" Zhang Ning nodded. King Xiaoao probably knew their plan, grinned and said, "I have 4 shops on Zuk Street. One of them is spacious enough and has a second floor. It is most suitable for opening a restaurant. If you want, I can sell it for you guys." Suzaku Street, Yang Data took a breath of air. He would never dare to imagine that Zuk Street was all owned by dignitaries. King Xiaoao didn't take it seriously. "I have countless properties under my name. I can just sell a shop. How about it? Do you want it?" "How much money?" To be honest, Zhang Ning's heart was moved. King Xiaoao frowned and looked at his entourage. "How much is my shop worth?" "Your Majesty, according to the current valuation, it should be around 20,000 taels," he replied respectfully. Yang Datu and Lu Ye shrank their necks, feeling a little weaker. "Auntie, how about we take a look again?" Lu Ye said cautiously. King Xiaoao sneered, "Looking at the entire capital, the Zuk Street area is the best, and the richest people go there. If you want to do business, you should know who makes the most money. It is okay to choose other areas, but some wealthy families in the capital, the disciples, may not necessarily support you. You know, if they don't take action, they will make hundreds or even thousands of taels, or just 20,000 taels, and they will make it back in a short time." Zhang Ning thought thoughtfully, "Why do I think you look like a pyramid schemer? Could it be that you were before?" You, don't talk nonsense. I am a serious citizen and a good person," King Xiaoao emphasized repeatedly, almost roaring. The others were confused. Only Zhang Ning understands. "Oh. Just talk, don't get excited." King Xiaoao rolled his eyes, took a sip of tea, and complained, "I'm so angry with you. Misfortune comes from your mouth. Did you come here because of your unforgiving words?" "Bah, a dog's mouth can't spit out ivory." Zhang Ning glared at him fiercely. King Xiaoao felt relieved. "Just say what you say, why are you still cursing?" Zhang Ning, I want your shop, but I can't afford 20,000 taels." King Xiaoao was about to laugh subconsciously, but he heard Zhang Ning continue, "So I have unilaterally decided to share the profit with you in 3 levels when the restaurant opens, until the amount reaches 20,000 taels. What do you think?" King Xiaoao frowned. "It seems like the risk I have to take is greater than yours. If your restaurant doesn't make money, wouldn't I lose all my money?" Zhang Ning sighed, "Hey. If the restaurant can't open, we will go back to Ping'an County. Don't worry, Your Majesty, the shop is still yours, and we will give you a certain amount of compensation." King Xiaoao's expression changed. "Are you threatening me?" Zhang Ning blinked innocently, "No way. With so many people present, Your Majesty, don't slander people. This woman must have done it on purpose." King Xiaoao was so angry that in order to prevent the family from leaving the capital, he had to agree even if he didn't agree. "Okay. I agree to share the money." The attendant was stunned with shock, as if he no longer recognized his master, and tentatively reminded him, "Your Majesty." King Xiaoao ignored it and asked, "Do you have any other requests to make so that I don't have to be angry again?" Zhang Ning chuckled, "Your Highness understands me. That's what I think. You can get 30% bonus in the early stage up to 20,000 taels, but we are tight on money and don't even have the start-up capital to open a restaurant. And because we offended Duke Nguo, we have to pay less. We want the prince to build momentum for us, do you think so?" King Xiaoao laughed angrily, "I cooperated with your family to open a restaurant. I contributed money and efforts, and finally earned 20,000 taels of money from selling the shop. Without any interest? Jiangning, do I look like someone who has been taken advantage of? Doesn't your conscience hurt if you plot against your own people like this? Jiangning made a pitiful look and wiped the non-existent tears from the corner of his eyes. Then what should we do? Don't you want our family to establish a foothold in the capital? Your Majesty, those who can do more work, if the restaurant can really open it, I will definitely thank you. I will definitely tell you what you want to know. King Xiaoyao's expression froze. Damn, he was really taken advantage of. Okay, it's a deal. The follower was so frightened that one Buddha was born and two Buddhas ascended to heaven. My lord, 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 do you want to calm down and think about it? Oh my God. If the prince knew that his prince had suffered such a big loss, he would probably go crazy. King Xiaoyao waved his hand. This matter is settled. You go back and deliver the deed of the shop, and immediately find someone to tidy up the shop. Within 10 days, I will see one more shop on Zuk Street. Fire Flame Tower, Jiangning said casually. King Xiaoyao immediately asked his personal followers to handle the matter. After a meal of roast duck, the Yang family's restaurant was settled. When King Xiaoyao left, Yang Datu and Lu Ye were still dizzy. At the same time, in the palace of Prince Xiaoyao, the eldest son Xiao Kongyun angrily stopped Prince Xiaoyao on the eaves of the corridor, who had just entered the palace. Father, you shouldn't give away the shop on Zuk Street so easily just to win a beauty. Who said that I gave away my shop easily? King Xiaoyao frowned subconsciously. The attendant behind him lowered his head guiltily. Wang Xiaoyao realized this and cursed angrily. Li San, what are you talking about? Li San knelt down with a plop. Your Majesty, I'm afraid that you will suffer a loss. That Uncle Guang'an is really good at calculating, you are no match for him. They say they will give you 20,000 taels, but there will be no interest. You will be asked to contribute money and effort in the early stage, and they won't pay you back. What's the point of taking advantage of you instead of taking advantage of you? Xiao Kongyun let out a long sigh. Father, you don't care about your son's mischief outside, but you shouldn't have no bottom line and act recklessly. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 250. Chapter 250 Hidden Secrets. Xiaoyao Wang touched his chin and fell into deep thought. I have no bottom line? Do I act recklessly? Is that possible? Xiao Kongyun took a deep breath to stop himself from becoming a monk rationally. Uncle Guang'an was conferred by the emperor. He is different from those Ying-Yan. You can't do it even if you like him. Ahem, cough, cough. King Xiaoyao choked on his saliva and coughed several times. What did you say? You said I like Uncle Guang'an. Isn't this obvious? Xiao Kongyun frowned, not understanding why his father reacted this way. King Xiaoyao squatted on the ground and laughed so hard that he almost burst into tears. Then he stood up, walked around in front of his son, and said in a very disgusting manner, King Xiaoyao, I want money, and power. If you have good looks, I may not be able to fall in love with you even if the fairy comes. Do you think I will fall in love with Uncle Guang'an? Xiao Kongyun didn't understand even more. Then why are you willing to suffer such a big loss? You don't understand. King Xiaoyao raised his lips meaningfully, and then touched his son's head. Father has his own reasons for doing this. You just need to guard Prince Xiaoyao's palace, study hard and practice martial arts, and be a talented and knowledgeable person. Just be the heir to the cause, don't worry about the others. But my father can tell you that Uncle Guang'an is an old friend of my father. She didn't really cheat on him. She was probably angry because of Xuexiao's matter. She didn't like my father, so she was always angry with me. In short, children don't have to worry about adults' things, just go and have fun. Xiao Kongyun was very helpless. Father, it's you who are playing, but I still have to do my homework. He was relieved in his heart. As long as his father was not stupid, he really couldn't worry about the rest. King Xiaoao smiled awkwardly, feeling a little guilty, but only for a moment. He turned back to take the silver and ran away without a trace like a bird out of its cage. The shop on Zuk Street is watched by everyone in the capital, and even the slightest disturbance cannot be hidden from the eyes of caring people. As soon as people came to work in Prince Xiaoao's shop, someone started asking for information from the servants of Prince Xiaoao's house. Li San complained on behalf of his master. When asked when he came out with King Xiaoao, he cried with a grieved face, "My prince is really miserable. He gave up his shop for Uncle Guang'an and even contributed money and effort. I don't know what the master is trying to do. Really or not? Are you talking about the emperor's conferred Guang'anbo? Shouldn't he be the eldest lady of the prime minister's mansion? I heard that Miss Sun is obsessed with the prince and has been keeping her virginity since her betrothed passed away. I swore not to marry anyone other than Prince Xiaoao, so how could the prince look down on Miss Sun but fall in love with Uncle Guang'an? How could Li San know so much?" After hearing this, he was so angry that he beat his chest and looked sad. The rumors spread out of nowhere and became more and more intense. Zhang Ning is busy with the opening of Lian Tower and hasn't received any news yet. At the invitation of King Xiaoao, she took a look at the shop. She had to say that the shop in this area was really good. Opposite was a theater, on the left was a pastry shop, and on the right was a wine cellar. She opened a restaurant in the middle, and even the wine was there. Save it, it seems like you have to find an opportunity to go next door and get close to the shopkeeper. Speaking of wine, she couldn't help but think of the rice wine and fruit wine she made. It was already around this time, and she didn't know what happened to the wine. Zhang Ning seemed a little distracted as she had something on her mind. King Xiaoao shook her eyes with a folding fan. "What are you thinking about? Take a look and see how this shop should be improved." Zhang Ning came back to his senses, glanced at King Xiaoao subconsciously, raised his head and carefully looked at the internal structure of the shop. The shop should have been a cloth shop originally, and there were rows of shelves next to it, holding a few pieces of fabric. The second floor is used to entertain distinguished guests. It is very elegantly decorated and does not require too much modification. Zhang Ning asked curiously, "Did this shop have a bad business before?" She checked and found that the shop must have been closed for a while and there was a thick layer of dust on the table. King Xiaoao sighed softly, "Actually, this shop did not originally belong to me. It was owned by my aunt, Princess King He. When my aunt married Bei Liao, my father prepared a lot of dowry for her. Let's not talk about the things that can be taken away. There are also some farms, shops, and houses that cannot be taken away. These things are taken care of by special people, and the profits are given to my aunt every year. 5 years ago, the old northern Liao emperor passed away, his aunt lost her husband, and the new emperor ascended the throne. It was necessary to accommodate the old northern Liao emperor's harem. The aunt was a princess by marriage and had no heirs. In order to show his goodwill, the new emperor granted permission for her to return to Qi. After so many years in a foreign country, my aunt thought she would stay in Bei Liao forever. She didn't expect that the new emperor would grant her such a great favor. She was so excited that she fell ill. But she was eager to return home, dragging her sick body with her on the way. When she returned to Qi, her body was very broken. She fell ill in the early spring of this year and couldn't survive it, so she left. Before she died, she gave her property to several younger generations. I was sweet-tongued and filial, so I was already popular with the elders. Besides being widowed, my aunt loved me very much and gave me this shop." Zhang Ning didn't expect this shop to come from this way, and he despised King Xiaoao a little bit more. "I thought you could hand over the shop so readily. This shop is not yours in the first place. This is the property that your elders gave you before they died. You let me out. If Princess King He finds out, she will climb out of the coffin and teach you this unworthy descendant. Wang Xiaoyao was furious when he was scolded. I didn't do this just for you. It's better for you, you got an advantage and acted like a good boy. Li San was almost crying when he heard it. It's over, his master is really getting deeper and deeper. Zhang Ning's face tightened and he shook his head. I can't buy your shop. Even if I didn't know it before, now that I know it, I always feel uneasy. Li San nodded crazily on the sidelines. However, King Xiaoyao didn't take it seriously and sneered, how interesting. You've become more particular about this person. To tell you the truth, I don't know what's going on with this shop. My aunt used to do a lot of business in this shop, all of which were business. It's bleak and can only barely stay flat. Before her death, her aunt had been thinking about selling this shop, but she just said that. After all, this shop was a dowry given to her by her father, and she couldn't bear to part with it. It was like worthless food, and it was a pity to throw it away if it was tasteless. She had confessed before she died that if the shop still looks the same in my hands, just sell it. There is no need to fight with it. You know me. If you don't need this little money, you can keep it or sell it. Since if you need it, I'll give it to you. If you can make the restaurant business prosperous, I think my aunt has a spirit in heaven and she will definitely be happy. Zhang Ning was a little speechless, but she had to say that King Xiaoyao's words were quite useful. At least she didn't think about giving up the shop. As for whether she could break its spell, it didn't matter to her at all.